Wait, what did he just say?
There's going to be people of means who are going to travel, and then there's going to be people maybe who of lesser means who might actually be able to use an Oculus or a Magic Leap or some other kind of device to travel to the same place, but from their own couch. But in many ways, it's actually going to create even more distance between those two people. That psychologically, and I think that we've experienced this through social media. In many ways, it's brought people closer in certain ways, but actually created this remarkable divide because it's even more visible, actually, the divide in certain ways.
I really hope you guys are paying attention, because this is what rich people are literally planning the future for the rest of us. While we're all going to be stuck in apartments that we'll never be able to purchase, never be able to afford, wearing Oculus for our vacation time because we can't afford a real one, because we got to go to work tomorrow, because we have to work 7 days a week, 3 jobs just to pay that rent and that car payment and the gasoline to put in the car that you can't even afford in the first place, while the rich people are jet setting all over the world, enjoying themselves and having a good time, living like kings, while the rest of us slaves live like slaves. Stay safe, stay free.
This is the door closing that's not intended to be opened again. And the idea is everything you do, I mean everything eventually, you will need a digital ID. And your digital ID will be connected to a digital currency. If you want to see what's planned for the West tomorrow, then look at China today, where if you are not behaving in a way that the government wants you to behave, then you lose credits in their social credit system. And if you lose enough, you can't go on a plane, you can't go on a train, basically take part in mainstream society. You are excluded. This is a global agenda. This is not about Keir Starmer, he's a gopher. It's not about Donald Trump, he's a gopher. And they're gophers for this global network that I call the global cult. And the idea is to eventually have a world government which won't be elected, purely appointed, technocrats, bureaucrats, that will oversee this AI digital system. And you won't be able to go anywhere in the world without this system is tracking you. Here we are now looking at this line in the sand, and if we allow it to be crossed, it's going to be very, very difficult to push back. And that's why it's so vital that the people of, well, this country, but all countries, realize the scale of freedom deletion this digital ID is a massive step towards and fundamental to the deletion of freedom.
Shalom. I would like to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rekha Kodash. I would like to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Salutations to all you sincere Akim Christians who are across the four corners of the world. And just a quick news update through the spirit, the power, and the vibration of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. And as you just saw from those two opening videos, and mainly going into that second one, of David Icke, who will be considered as a conspiracy theorist or a whistleblower or a truther. And I believe through the spirit, he's nothing but control opposition. Because for you to come out into the open, hits the public, and go to all these different hidden secrets, agendas, or future plans that the elites of Esau Edom has for humanity, and not get clipped or touched, there's something very odd there. But it's not, because he's nothing but control opposition. However, he does make good talking points. And of course, he does go off on certain things. But within that video, he was going into how the digital ID will be the final lock on human freedom, and how this is the doors closing that were intended to never be opened again, which is going into the deletion of so-called human liberty or freedom, which backs up this speech that George H.W. Bush stated within August 1990, his so-called famous NWO speech. And within that speech, he stated, "We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a NWO, a world where the conduct of law, not the law of the jungle. And their so-called idea of the law of the jungle represents how humanity is maneuvering right now. Like the people have the so-called freedom of traveling, freedom of speech. You can be able to purchase or invest into things, things of that sort. And he stated a world where the conduct of law governs the conduct of nations. And what does conduct goes into? A person's behavior or mannerism or activity. And he stated, when we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this NWO, in order which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN founders. And like David Icke stated, this is going to be forged by not election, but more so an appointed technocracy, where these different technocrats will be overseers of humanity. And for the ones of the people who want to be involved into this new digital AI system, their digital ID will be connected to this digital currency by the means of the RFID microchip, which is the mark of the beast according to the Holy Bible. When it's stated within Revelation, the 13th chapter, how he, referring to the elites of Esau Edom, or the so-called powers that be, that's forging this new AI digital system, hits this global digital prison, and how he's going to cause all. And that word all within the Greek goes into pas, which is spelled P-A-S, and which means individually, like everyone, the whole, or collectively, referring to humanity, in order to participate within this new digital system. And if you don't want to be a part of this new digital AI system, then therefore you will be excluded from conducting within this new digital system or prison. And that takes me to Job 5 verse 12. He, referring to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, through his unbegotten Son, Yahushua, disappointed the devices of the crafty. And the crafty represents these elites of Esau Edom. And when you do think about the word crafty, you also think about the word screwed, or cunning, or devious, or deceptive. Hence that spirit that's embedded into the tabernacle of Esau Edom. Remember, it's stated within Genesis, the 3rd chapter, how he, referring to Esau Edom, who was a serpent at the time frame in the garden, was more subtle than any beast within the field. And that goes into how crafty and how very artful he is with his deceptions. Within 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter in the NLT, it goes into how the man of sin, again referring to Esau Edom, will do the work of Satan with counterfeit power, signs, and miracles. Hence his science and technology, which is going into his new digital AI transhumanism system. And the whole world witnessed Esau's counterfeit power, signs, and miracles with his so-called science. Hence the C-19 situation, which is why Klaus Schwab, which is the founder of the WEF, the World Economic Forum, he stated years ago how this pandemic represents for us a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, to reimagine, and to reset our world. And that's going into this digital reset, where the means of these Federal Reserve notes or the world's reserve currency, the American dollar, will no longer be in operation, which explains why we're witnessing right now how countries or governments are developing digital ID systems. And for right now, it's all for the phones or secure databases. And these same digital ID systems, they rely on apps, biometrics, or encrypted credentials. But very, very soon, these same digital IDs will be inside people's bodies. And that's how these people are going to be coded with Esau's data via his science and technology through the means of the MOTB, which is decreed by our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, through his unbegotten Son, Yahushua, for our people, you biblical Israelites, who are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, and Native Americans, to not take. And we witness a lot of our people that bow down to the C-19 jab. So therefore, how much more when the so-called powers that be implement the knockdown or the knockout punch, which is the MOTB that will be fully instrumented out here. So again, he disappointed the devices of the crafty so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. And once you go into the word enterprise on Enema and online, it goes into like an undertaking and to take in hand. And what device within today's time that they are making talking points about, and within so many cases, people already got it inside their bodies, preferably their right hands or their foreheads, the RFID microchip. And that will be how the digital ID will be connected to this so-called digital currency, because the MOTB system will be the new digital currency. And these so-called elites of Esau Edom are very serious about causing all, because according to Revelation 12 and 12, these same people who are prophesied as the devil according to the Bible know that they have but a short time. And they're going to go out by all means to fully implement this new MOTB system. And we believe through the Spirit they do have everything set up for this new system to be fully paved out here for humanity, but they are waiting for the perfect crisis. It can be within the means of a new pestilence or biological warfare or this energy crisis, soon to be an energy lockdown. The power grid will collapse. And once or if they do turn on the so-called electricity back on again, then the only way for you to be merged back into this new way of society or system will again be by taking a MOTB. And that takes me to 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, the 14th verse. The world and the people in it are doomed, because a lot of people are banking on this so-called American society to bounce back, to like re-emerge itself. But according to Jeremiah, the 51st chapter, it stated how Babylon, referring to America, cannot be healed and take balm for her pain. So therefore, it's no healing mechanisms or financial mechanisms or even spiritual mechanisms to help aid or assist America to be made great again or to be able to bounce back. This American society, or Babylon the Great, which is personified as a whore according to the book of Revelation, she has hit the wall. And she will never get that self-esteem or courage or those looks or that old beauty as she once had. This place is circling the drain, which is all due to end-time biblical prophecies. So therefore, the world and the people in it are doomed. And that factors in 2/3 of our people that want to walk down into Egypt for help, who are spiritually, mentally banking on this place to bounce back. And by investing into America, it's like applying for a job in a burning building. This place is a dead end. And it's going to take horrific casualties for the majority of our people to really find out that. And it says the war that will bring their destruction is very near. Nations will arm themselves and fight against other nations, which explains your impending Civil War 2.0. And where it's going to be a great infighting or rivalry between nations within the same country. And it says there will be great political turmoil with one group trying to overpower another and gain control. And we're seeing a great political divide right now within America, with the so-called red states against the so-called blue states, the Republicans against the Democrats. And we're seeing a build-up to that type of political tension on the comment boards on social media. Like anything involving Donald Trump or his team, and where he's acting like a cruel lord by their diabolical plans or agendas, and more so how they're being presented as the hammer of the earth, you will see people on the comment boards will say, well, you all voted for this, or you all voted for red. So therefore, that's political polarization. And Yahushua gave us the key through the Spirit. When you see a divide between a country or a nation or a kingdom or a house, then therefore that particular kingdom, nation, country, or house cannot stand. And here's the point, verse 17. There will no longer be free access to the cities. And once these technocrats instrument this new digital prison, it's going to be tightly and heavily controlled or surveillance. And where it's going to be an end of national sovereignty or end of privately owned property, end of the family unit, or end of private transportation, private forms, or travel restrictions. But they will implement a one world government, a one world cashless currency by the means of the MOTB, a one world central bank, a one world military. You're going to have 15-minute smart cities. And by being involved into this new digital prison, and by the means of the people to fully maneuver within this new AI digital system, you will have to have the mark of the beast. Or if you don't, you will be excluded from their society. Like you'll be considered as an alien or a domestic terrorist. So with that being said, there will no longer be free access to the cities, hence these smart cities. And we are witnessing how the left-handed elites of Esau Edom are really trying to showcase unto the world how they're the God of this world. Like they are really trying to be like the Most High. Like with his left-handed angels, his Palantir, and where they are trying to imitate the angels of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Pursuant to Proverbs 15 verse 3, how the eyes of the Lord Yahweh are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. And with this new digital ID AI system, this is how the elites of Esau Edom are trying to sit in the temple of the Most High and claiming that he himself is the Most High. And a lot of people, especially the 2/3 of our people, are going to fall victim by really believing that the God of this world is going to be their savior. Again, remember, they were already opened up into the jab, then how much more that knockout punch. So with that being said, that takes me to 2 Corinthians 4 verse 3. But if our gospel, which goes into our good news of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, which is a great threat to Esau's existence, his world, his era. Because according to the volume of the book, via this testimony of Yahweh Shai, which is the spirit of prophecy, is forging the end of Esau's world, and us as Jacob, the beginning of it that follow it. Which is why the true prophets of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai are going to be heavily persecuted. Because again, this testimony of Yahweh Shai serves as a great threat unto Esau's rule. But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, and 2/3 of our people are definitely lost in the sauce. They believe all the mainstream propaganda that Esau Edom gives them. They never do the due diligence to do their own research. They just open up and take it all in. Verse 4, in whom the God of this world, referring to the elites of Esau Edom, have blinded the minds of them, referring to the 2/3 of our people, which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, who is the image of the Most High Yahweh, should shine unto them. And again, this gospel hits the good news that's being rightly divided by the true prophets of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai within these end times. Pursuant to Matthew 24 and 14, it goes into how this gospel of the kingdom should be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then should the end come. And by this same gospel that has reached into the gates of the nobles, that explains why Esau Edom is in a desperate rush trying to cause all, because he knows that he has but a short time. So that concludes the lesson. I wanted to bring those talking points out. Like within the first video, you saw the guy in the WEF forum. He was going into how the so-called rich will be able to have the access to travel, and the so-called less fortunate, going into the poor, will be able to have virtual reality headsets. And they can imagine where they're going. And just going into what David Icke stated within his second video, how this is the door closing that was not intended to be opened again. Going into the deletion of human freedom or liberty. It's all about total control. Because the elites that have control of everything else with the different currencies, the resources, the lands, these corporations, the mindset of the people. However, their thing now is getting inside these people's bodies, like truly controlling their spirits or mindset, hence by being hackable humans. And this is definitely where the world is coming to, a very dystopian society, and where they're going to forge this digital ID into the new digital currency by the means of the MOTB or the RFID microchip, which is all a part of Esau's enterprise to fully implement this new global digital prison. So with that, hopefully you all was edified, you all stay strong, keep pushing forward. Shalom.